My father caught a son-in-law at the top of the list, making Xie Guanxuan, the third-ranked scholar, marry me. At that time, I didn't know he already had someone in his heart. Later, my father was wrongfully imprisoned and sentenced to exile in Lingnan. He brought back his childhood sweetheart and said he would marry her as his second wife. My mother-in-law admonished me, "You have been married for 3 years without bearing a child, and you still won't allow my son to remarry." Xie Guanxuan mocked me, "You have no one to rely on now, so stop making a scene." He didn't know, I still keep the letter of divorce he wrote in a fit of anger. In 7 more days, I am about to go to Lingnan with my father. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. On the day my father was imprisoned, Xie Guanxuan brought back his childhood sweetheart, who had just divorced. He came to my courtyard and indifferently informed me, "In 7 days, I will marry Shitang as my equal wife. I have let her down too much. No matter how unwilling you are, you must endure it for now. My father has just been imprisoned." He wouldn't even wait a single day. I looked up at him. His gaze was as cold as the unmelted ice of early spring. Not a trace of affection could be seen. After 3 years of marriage, I still hadn't managed to move him. I turned my head away in a fluster, hiding my heartache. "Okay, anyway, I'm leaving." "It doesn't matter who he brings into the mansion." Xie Guanxuan was slightly surprised. His lips moved slightly, but he said nothing. He was always sparing with his words to me. After he left, I opened the vanity case and pulled out a piece of paper hidden beneath the jewelry. It was the divorce letter Xie Guanxuan had written for me 3 years ago. It bore his signature and a fingerprint. "Just submit it to the authorities. Then we can part ways and go our separate paths." 3 years ago. At the Cheonglin banquet, I fell in love at first sight with the Tanhua scholar Xie Guanxuan. Within 3 days, he sent someone to propose to me. I thought it was a match made in heaven, until the news of Song Shitang's wedding reached the capital. That day, Xie Guanxuan drank himself into a stupor. I brewed a pot of sobering soup for him and brought it to the study. He lay slumped over the desk, his eyes red, calling my name, "Pei Jiaoyi." I thought he needed me, so I quickly stepped forward. Yet he picked up the paperweight and threw it to the ground. The ceramic paperweight landed heavily beside my skirt, pieces of porcelain scattered in all directions. My heart skipped a beat in shock. Xie Guanxuan, who had always been as gentle as jade, gritted his teeth and said, "Pei Jiaoyi, it's all your fault. If it weren't for your interest in me, if it weren't for your father being the Minister of Personnel, how could I have been forced to marry you? How could I have watched Shitang marry someone else with my own eyes?" There was actually overwhelming hatred in his tone. So it was, what I thought was a harmonious marriage was nothing but a dream of my own. A lump of emotion choked in my chest. Can't go up, can't come down. It made me weep uncontrollably. Xie Guanxuan staggered to his feet, picked up a brush, and hastily wrote a letter of divorce, signed and stamped with a fingerprint. Then he tossed that flimsy piece of paper over. He said, "I want a divorce from you so I can bring Shitang back." He was heavily drunk. He even said something like that. I suppressed my emotions and said with a choked voice, "You're drunk, let's talk when you're sober." I bent down to pick up that piece of paper, turned around, and walked out, closing the door behind me. Tears flowed down my cheeks like a bursting river. I went back to the courtyard alone. The night breeze was cool, yet it still failed to clear my head. The next day, Xie Guanxuan sobered up and treated me with his usual gentle courtesy. He didn't mention Song Shitang again, nor did he bring up the divorce again. I pressed that piece of paper to the very bottom of the vanity case. Deceiving myself, Xie Guanxuan's beloved had already married another. He and I have a long future ahead. Song Shitang had placed her trust in the wrong person. 2 months ago, Xie Guanxuan personally wrote a letter to the magistrate of Songyang County to help her secure a divorce. He took pity on her being all alone and helpless, so he brought her to the capital and arranged for her stay. Now, he was about to welcome her into his household as an equal wife. When Xie Guanxuan brought Song Shitang to see me, I was taking stock of my dowry. When I married Xie Guanxuan, I brought 80 trunks of dowry. Now I need to carefully account for each item, convert them into silver notes, to use for bribes in prison. Xie Guanxuan stepped through the door. I put the booklet away and stood up. He said, "Shitang wants to live in this courtyard. You should move out." His voice was cold and decisive, leaving no room for discussion. This courtyard is closest to Xie Guanxuan's residence. The courtyard is filled with blooming flowers, including the crabapple tree he planted himself. Under the wisteria trellis is the swing he built for me when we got married. Song Shitang stood behind him. Timidly, she peeked out, revealing a pair of apricot-shaped eyes filled with envy. I looked up and refused him for the first time. No, the official residence is large enough, it's not that there's no place for her, so why must it be here? She tugged at Xie Guanchuan's sleeve, looking somewhat displeased. Xie Guanchuan's face darkened. Because Shitang likes it, because the crabapple flowers here were originally planted for her, so, all of this had been prepared for Song Shitang from the very beginning. Song Shitang curved her lips at me, her smile was gentle, like the weeping crabapple blossoms growing beside the blue bricks and dark tiles. I stared at her. Xie Guanchuan then shielded her behind him, his tone icy cold. You should move out today, behave yourself, don't make everyone lose face. I lowered my eyelashes and said softly, okay, my father has been imprisoned, my greatest support is gone. Xie Guanchuan no longer needs to treat me with formal courtesy. Before sunset, I moved to a secluded small courtyard, then I took out the jewelry Xie Guanchuan had given me and sold it at the treasure pavilion. I once spent extravagantly here. The landlady smiled as soon as she saw me and led me into the side room. I laid out the items one by one on the table. The first was a pair of gold hairpins that Xie Guanchuan had given me when he came to propose. He had just passed the imperial examination then, penniless, and used all his savings to have these small, exquisite hairpins made for me. The second item was a jade bracelet he bought for me with his salary after being promoted to the chief clerk of the Ministry of Personnel. The third item was a hairpin he gave me as an apology after that drunken incident. I loved wearing this hairpin and running toward him. The beads on it jingling as they swayed, he would laugh and pull me into his embrace, saying I was always so free-spirited, unlike those proper and dignified ladies. The shopkeeper widened her eyes. These seem to have been bought by Lord Xiehir a few years ago. Are you really sure you want to sell them, madam? I said. Truly. She carefully examined the jewelry and finally handed me a silver note. I didn't know how to bargain. I took the silver note and walked out. It was bustling outside. I heard Xie Guanchuan's voice, filled with a doting smile. Do you like this hairpin? Song Shitang replied shyly. I do. Xie Guanchuan then bought it for her without hesitation. As he paid, he looked up and saw me, a hint of surprise in his eyes. He instinctively looked at my wrist. The jade bracelet that I never used to be without was already gone. Xie Guanchuan put down the silver in his hand, gripped my wrist, and stared into my eyes. Pei Jiaoyi, where is your bracelet? I turned my head away, avoiding his gaze, and the lie came easily. I didn't wear it. His face darkened with anger, and his grip tightened, making me wince in pain. Song Shitang hurriedly tugged at his sleeve. Guanchuan. Only then did he snap out of it and release his hold. He smiled at her again, dazed. I was just out of sorts a moment ago. I left alone under the varied gazes of the crowd, the second day of preparing to leave. My mother-in-law called me over and told me to quickly prepare for Xie Guanchuan and Song Shitang's wedding. I have things to do, so I politely declined. She changed her previous pleasant expression and scolded me. You've been married for 3 years without bearing a child, and you still won't allow my son to take another wife. I lowered my head and replied, of course it's allowed. It's just that I've been tied up with matters recently and haven't had the time. Xie Guanchuan never asked for my permission when taking a second wife. Why do I have to start preparing? I was too lazy to argue and casually cut her off. On the way back to the courtyard, I ran into Xie Guanchuan again, dressed in a moon-white casual robe, with bright eyes and well-defined brows. He was accompanying Song Shitang, brewing tea in the backyard. She wore a red agate pearl hairpin, smiling as she poured tea for him. Even when she bent over, the hairpin remained perfectly still. The scalding tea streamed into the tasting cup, their gazes lingering tenderly in the misty steam. He had entered officialdom at a young age and often used government affairs as an excuse to stay in his study all day. You've never done such things with me. I paused in my steps but did not stop. Rushing back into the courtyard as if fleeing, my thoughts were in disarray. I couldn't even focus on the account books. That fleeting glance in my youth haunted me for 3 full years. Only now do I see it clearly. Xie Guanchuan's affection for me was false, but his love for Song Shitang was true. I stared blankly at the account book. It wasn't until the maid Zhuoxue brought me the ledger of my dowry. Madam, it's all checked, apart from the portion sold to cover the master's expenses. A few items are still missing. I suddenly looked up. Which ones? Back then, my parents had given me far too much as a dowry. I can't remember it all, she said. A pair of red agate pearl hairpins. A phoenix crown adorned with kingfisher feathers, red agate pearl hairpins. I've seen them on Song Shitang's head. I barged into Song Shitang's courtyard. She was trying on a phoenix crown in front of a gleaming bronze mirror. Her wedding with Xie Guanchuan was in 6 days. It was all too rushed. I thought Xie Guanxuan had intended to marry her all along and had prepared everything in advance. Unexpectedly, she went to the storeroom and took the kingfisher feather phoenix crown that my mother had given me. I was so angry it made my liver ache. I reached out and took the phoenix crown off her head. One by one, I pulled out those intricate hairpins and threw them to the ground. Some of them were tangled in her long hair, and I yanked them out forcefully. She gasped in pain, her hair disheveled, forced to lift her head and beg me, "Please, let go first, I'll take them off myself." Holding my phoenix crown, I watched her coldly. Song Shitong fell from the chair to the ground, her hair disheveled, a few strands of hair were pulled out and fell to the floor. In a wretched state, she looked at me with tearful eyes. "Madam, if you had just said the word, I would have taken it off. Was this really necessary?" I kept a cold expression and nudged her with the tip of my shoe. "You took what's mine without asking, and now you ask if it was necessary." She buried her head, weeping as if pear blossoms were drenched in rain. Footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. Xie Guanxuan strode in, pushed me aside, and pulled Song Shitong into his embrace. I staggered backward 2 steps, instinctively grabbing the dressing table beside me to steady myself. The phoenix crown slipped from my hand and fell heavily to the ground. The crimson gemstone faintly showed cracks. He looked at me with a gaze full of hatred and unfamiliarity, as if he had never known me. "Pei Jiaoyi, why are you making things difficult for her?" My grievances choked in my throat. In the end, I could only sob out, "She took something my mother left me." His voice turned cold. "It's just a headpiece. What's the harm in letting her wear it for a few days? Would you rather break it than lend it to Shitong? You have no one to rely on now, so don't make a scene anymore." I stood frozen in place. Though it was clearly already the beginning of spring, I felt a chill all over my body. Xie Guanxuan knew best how to wound me. The gem on the phoenix crown cracked. Song Shitong buried her face in Xie Guanxuan's embrace, frowning. She no longer liked it. He whispered to comfort her, "I'll have another one made for you. It will definitely be ready before the wedding." I bent down, picked up the broken phoenix crown, and walked out alone. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed, the pain making it hard to breathe. Just a few more days to endure. Once everything is arranged, I'll go. I exchanged most of my dowry for silver notes and saved them carefully. Xie Guanxuan ignored me for a day before coming to find me. He said my father had been demoted to a deputy prefect and would leave for Lingnan in 3 days. My mother will go with him. As a married daughter, I can stay in the capital and continue to be an official's wife. Xie Guanxuan leaned against the doorframe, backlit. His handsome face was shrouded in shadow. "If it weren't for marrying me, Pei Jiaoyi, you'd be stuck in those misty, malaria-ridden lands now." I neither confirmed nor denied it. If it weren't for falling in love with Xie Guanxuan at first sight, even if he were a member of the imperial clan, I could have married him, with peace and smooth sailing. Why would I have to endure such grievances? Seeing me remain silent, he took a bracelet from his sleeve and placed it heavily on my dressing table. "You lied to me, you sold it." He emphasized the word lied with great force, as if extremely displeased. I said softly, "I didn't want it anymore, so I sold it. Is that so hard to understand?" His brows furrowed with anger. "The butler said you recently sold off some of your dowry as well." He stared at me, his gaze as if trying to burn a hole through me. "You don't wear jewelry now, nor do you socialize with outsiders. What do you need so much money for?" I met his gaze and answered frankly, "My father has been demoted, the journey to Lingnan is long, and there are expenses to cover at every step." It was the truth. Xie Guanxuan had no doubts about it. He then proceeded to throw the items I had sold a few days ago, one by one, onto my dressing table. The pearls and jade ornaments clinked together with a clear, ringing sound. His eyes were cold and stern. "You sold all the things I gave you. Pei Jiaoyi, are you angry with me?" I lowered my head without a word, straightened the beaded strands of the hairpin, and placed it back into the vanity box. "Take it to Lingnan to sell. His hand doesn't reach that far." Click asterisk, the lock fell into place. I said softly, "No, I wasn't angry with him. But now, I no longer need anything he gives." Xie Guanxuan's voice was cold, tinged with sarcasm. "My rightful wife should have been Shitong. You have no right to compete with her or be jealous." I only replied woodenly, "I know, his rightful wife should have been Song Shitong. He and Song Shitong are truly a pair of lovers. I've heard this many times. There's no need for him to emphasize it again." He fell silent, sinking into a brief stillness. I went about my tasks on my own. I took down the intricate hair bun and braided my hair myself. Once I go to Lingnan in the future, there will be no maids to do my hair and makeup for me. Perhaps it was because I was very well behaved today. Xie Guanxuan's tone softened. Such matters should be left to the maids. I curled the corner of my lips. I replied perfunctorily, all right. There were only 2 days left until Xie Guanxuan and Song Shitang's wedding. Big red lanterns were hung under the eaves. Even my secluded courtyard had them. You could see them just by pushing open the window. The lanterns were connected by red silk, bearing Xie Guanxuan's calligraphy. May we be like the mandarin ducks, necks entwined for 1,000 years. May our union be as harmonious as the Qin and Se for a century. May we be a pair of swan geese flying together, never parting even in 100 years. 3 years ago, when I married him, there was none of this. I gazed out the window. Song Shitang appeared at the end of the long corridor. She was very happy today, her eyes curved like crescents, and she walked gracefully toward this side. The crimson hem of her dress swayed like a swimming koi. She stopped at my door and called out softly, Sister Pei, tell me, what kind of hairstyle should I wear on the day of the grand wedding? She was wearing the newly tailored wedding dress, but her hair was not yet styled, making her look like an unwed maiden. I said, this isn't your first time getting married. Why are you asking me about such trivial matters? Her expression stiffened, and her face turned a few shades paler. Her lips moved, but it seemed she couldn't speak. Xie Guanxuan had come around from the corridor at some point. His gaze was sharp as he spoke up for her. Pei Jiaoyi, you're a woman too, why must you provoke her with the past? It was Shitang who wanted to mend things with you, so she told me she'd come ask you in person. Wasn't she here just to provoke me? Xie Guanxuan couldn't see, his eyes were only on her. I stood by the threshold, looking down at her with disdain, just as I did my hair when I married before, so I do it now. All right, I've told you, you can go back now. Her eyes reddened, and she took 2 steps back. She fell weakly and helplessly into Xie Guanxuan's arms. Xie Guanxuan frowned, threatening me. Pei Jiaoyi, you have already violated the 7 grounds for divorce. I could easily use a letter of divorce to cut all ties with you. I stared at his face. My heart is filled with bitterness. I stiffly tugged at the corner of my lips and suddenly laughed until tears welled up in my eyes. No need, Xie Guanxuan, I already have the letter of divorce. He sneered, no need. If it weren't for the upcoming joyous occasion, I could write it for you right away. He was used to speaking harshly to me. Any words could be easily said. I leaned against the doorframe, without a word, watching him leave with Song Shitang. Song Shitang nestled in his arms, smiling at him. The lanterns hanging in the corridor cast a soft red glow on their profiles, a perfect match of love and affection. I took a deep breath to calm myself, then said to the maid beside me, prepare the carriage. Tomorrow, I will go to the Ministry of Rights. I returned to my room, taking the divorce letter from the dressing case, signing my name with a stroke of the pen, pressing down a fingerprint, done in one go. The divorce proceedings went very smoothly, with the signatures and fingerprints of both husband and wife. Now that the Pei family is in decline, it seems only natural for Xie Guanxuan to cut ties with me. The officials from the Ministry of Rights did not ask further questions. I have registered my household registration back to the Pei family. By the time I finished handling everything and returned to the mansion, it was almost noon. Tomorrow is the wedding banquet. The entire mansion is bustling with activity. No one paid any attention to me. I returned to the room and took stock of the things I needed to take with me. There were 2 redwood chests of belongings. I arranged for someone to send them out of the estate first. The banknote is very thin and can be carried with me. I have exchanged letters with my parents. We can set off early tomorrow morning. The room has been tidied up cleanly, leaving no trace that I ever lived there. As night fell, a maid from Xie Guanxuan's side brought me a set of lavish garments. She bowed her head and said, this is what the master ordered this servant to deliver to you. Madam, the fabric was personally chosen by the master 2 months ago. You may wear it to the ceremony tomorrow. The material was of the finest silk, shimmering with a radiant glow under the reddish candlelight. The maid inside the room took it over. She still hasn't left, standing at the foot of the steps. The master has asked this servant to bring a message to the lady. What he said yesterday was spoken in anger. Please do not take it to heart. Once spoken, words are like spilled water that cannot be taken back. The pain lingers. I remained silent, merely nodding, to indicate I had heard. She cautiously looked up and whispered, does madam have nothing to say to his lordship? The night wind was chilly. The wind made my eyes feel a bit dry. I said slowly, there's nothing left. You should go back and report your duty earlier. She quickly withdrew. That night, I slept restlessly. Servants and maids came and went at the door. The bright lamps burned through the night. Xie Guanxuan was to be married. The servants could receive large sums of reward money. Everyone was very happy, and they did not feel tired even after working day and night. I woke up very early. Just as the sky was beginning to lighten, I changed into plain, inconspicuous clothes, put on a veil hat, and went out. The butler still recognized me and casually asked, "What brings you out, Lady Pei?" "The wedding banquet is about to begin in an hour. Song Shitong is also going to become a lady now." To distinguish, he addressed me with my surname. I just smiled and said, "I'm going to the city gate to see my parents off. No need to inform the master." He bowed his head and said, "Yes." I got into the carriage and headed toward the city gate. The carriage rumbled forward. The spectators were heading in the direction of the Xie residence, opposite to my direction. I let the curtain fall and stared blankly at the tips of my shoes. 3 years ago, Xie Guanxuan and I were married, and for a time, we treated each other with mutual respect. I was naive back then. I thought that since Song Shitong had already married, and he had married me, this was the only way our life could continue. I thought that being good to him would win his heart, until a year ago, he received another letter from Song Shitong. After marrying me, he rose rapidly in the official ranks, almost getting promoted 1 rank every year. I loved him, and my father supported him. His life was smooth and his future looked bright, more spirited than when he had passed the imperial examination. But Song Shitong did not fare well after marriage. Her husband favored his concubine over his wife, making her life very difficult. At just 19 years old, she was worn out and grew increasingly thin. She couldn't help but pour out her troubles to her childhood friend. The ink on that letter was nearly blurred by her tears. She should have married Xie Guanxuan. They should have been a young couple. Xie Guanxuan felt guilty toward her and resentful toward me. From then on, he secretly supported her and distanced himself from me. I thought. I still woke up too late. An hour later, I boarded the carriage heading to Lingnan. My parents knew that I had divorced Xie Guanxuan. They just sighed. I regret not seeing clearly who they were at first, making me suffer all this for nothing. I pressed my lips together, not daring to speak. It was my foolishness. Mistake after mistake. The road to Lingnan is long. Fortunately, I had money with me, so I could rent a larger boat for the waterway journey, and I could also use it to smooth the way, securing a few fast horses at the post stations. By the time I arrived at the official residence in Lingnan, more than half a month had already passed. I had thought I wouldn't get used to it. But she only fell ill for a few days at first due to the unfamiliar climate, and soon adapted afterward. Mother planted melons, fruits, and vegetables in the courtyard. The climate here is hot and humid, so everything grows very quickly. Father's salary became very meager. I saved the money I brought with me for a rainy day. Then I followed mother to learn weaving and tailoring. There was no soft silk, nor any sparkling jewelry here, but I lived freely and happily. I can eat fruits that are not available in the capital and see scenery that the capital does not offer. If I could eat 300 lychees a day, I would gladly stay in Lingnan forever. I gradually forgot the days of the past. I forgot the feelings I had when I was with Xie Guanxuan, respecting each other like guests. The rare days of deep affection with Xie Guanxuan, being neglected by Xie Guanxuan, guarding the lonely lamp through the long nights, flowed by like running water. Everything passed like a dream, leaving no trace. After returning from the wedding banquet of my father's colleague's son, my mother took my hand, frowned, and asked me, "I noticed you were lost in thought just now. Were you thinking of that person again?" I was taken aback and replied bluntly, "I was wondering how the poached chicken at the banquet was made. It's different from how you usually prepare it." She burst into laughter. "Tomorrow, I'll have your father go ask about it." I hugged my mother's arm, clinging to her and acting coquettishly, laughing and chatting merrily. Before the wedding banquet began, Xie Guanxuan paused for a moment in front of Pei Jiaoi's door. He wanted to say that the mention of separation was unintentional. He didn't mean it. He just wanted to tell her that now she only had him. He didn't know when it had started. He was used to speaking harshly to Pei Jiaoi. Xie Guanxuan actually felt a bit of regret for speaking harshly to her. Regret for always hurting her. There was no sound in the room. He asked the butler, "Where is the lady?" The butler mistakenly thought he was referring to Song Shitong and replied, "The lady is dressing up." He replied, "Okay." Yesterday, Xie Guanxuan had sent a new set of clothes to Pei Jiaoi. He had chosen the fabric and had it made for her 2 months ago. Whenever he saw something nice, he always wanted to send it to Pei Jiaoi. The lake blue color suited her. He imagined how that outfit would look on her. He unconsciously curved the corners of his lips. But even as the wedding banquet began, he still hadn't seen Pei Jiaoi. His eyelids twitched, and he asked the steward again, "Where is the lady of the house?" The steward lowered his head in fear. "Do you mean Lady Pei?" "Lady Pei went to the city gate this morning to see off Lord Pei. The auspicious moment has arrived." Xie Guanxuan didn't have time to attend to Song Shitong behind him. He rushed to the side courtyard and pushed the door open. The room had been tidied up spotlessly, as if Pei Jiaoyi had never lived there. Only that set of lake blue new clothes was left in the room, no trace of having been touched. Xie Guanxuan's heart felt empty. A sharp pain pierced his heart, as if it were being stabbed. It seemed he was about to lose Pei Jiaoyi. Xie Guanxuan went to the stable, took a fast horse, and rushed out the door under the astonished gazes of the guests. Song Shitong chased after him, stumbling and weeping, holding up the hem of her wedding dress. Guanxuan, don't leave me behind again. The wind howled loudly in his ears. He didn't hear it. She stumbled over the threshold and was unwillingly helped back by her maid. Xie Guanxuan, dressed in wedding attire, whipped his horse and chased after her as if his life depended on it. The wind had blown his eyes red with bloodshot. He watched helplessly as a simple carriage drove out of the city gate. He wanted to follow and leave the city, but he was stopped. Xie Guanxuan was a capital official. He was not allowed to leave without an imperial decree. He watched helplessly as the carriage moved farther and farther away, disappearing from sight. Xie Guanxuan lost all strength and fell from his horse. Lingnan is 1,000 miles away from the capital. In the future, it is very likely that they would never see each other again in this lifetime. He covered his face with his hands, tears overflowed from between his fingers. The sobbing was extremely painful. Everyone was startled. The gatekeeper hurriedly helped him up. Lord Xie, what happened? He couldn't speak. Behind, above the Xie residence, fireworks prepared a day in advance bloomed in the clear blue sky. This should have been his joyous day, but Pei Jiaoyi was gone. He no longer thought of anything. It turned out that Song Shitong was merely an unattainable obsession from his youth. He had always believed he married Pei Jiaoyi under the pressure of power, always thought he should hate her, should distance himself from her, and should compensate Song Shitong, day and night together. He dare not say that he never felt a thing. Only now did Xie Guanxuan see clearly. He had lost Pei Jiaoyi. That is the heart-wrenching pain. I thought I would stay in Lingnan for a long time, but 2 years later, my father was rescued by my uncle and brought back. My uncle wrote a letter to persuade him. His grievances have not yet been cleared, but due to his past political achievements and his reputation for diligence and care for the people in Lingnan, the emperor summoned him back to the capital. From now on, he must be cautious in his words and actions and refrain from speaking out of turn. It wasn't just my uncle who helped my father. Xie Guanxuan was also involved. When Xie Guanxuan was mentioned, my father's expression remained indifferent, his eyes and brows unmoved. To him, my father was not just his former father-in-law but also his mentor. He was concerned about my father's affairs. It seemed only natural. In early spring, I returned to the capital with my parents. The former official residence was no longer habitable. Father took us to live in the old house on the outskirts of the city. When Xie Guanxuan came to see me, the first spring rain fell in the suburbs. He held an oil paper umbrella and paused at the door. The rain fell in fine, dense threads, stretching between us. It was as if separated by a layer of mist. I recalled that first glance when we met. He stood in the crowd, tall and elegant like a crane, as if draped in mist, as if facing pearls and jade, but now he has grown older, and thinner too. His temperament settled, calm and unrippled like an ancient well. When I see him, my heart no longer beats as fast as it used to. I stood under the eaves, tucking my hands into my sleeves, and asked him with lowered eyes, "What brings you here, Lord Xie?" His voice was hoarse. "Jiaoyi, I don't want to divorce you." That was just words spoken in anger. I was angry that you sold the things I gave you. I looked into his eyes and said softly, "Xie Guanxuan, you've said such angry words twice now. The first time, I deceived myself and hid the letter of divorce. The second time, I finally made up my mind to leave Xie Guanxuan." A flicker of astonishment and confusion passed through his eyes. It seemed he didn't remember. After all, he was drunk at the time. And that matter has already been 5 years in the past. I calmly recounted to him. 5 years ago, you were drunk. You said it was all my fault for making you watch Song Shitong marry someone else. The letter of divorce was also written to me at that time. 2 years ago, with that paper, I divorced you. Now we have nothing to do with each other. If you need to discuss matters with my father, I can pass on a message for you. His face turned extremely pale in an instant. Her lips moved, barely uttering a few words. Her voice very soft. "I came to find you, Jiaoyi." Then there's nothing more to say. I took a few steps back and closed the door, shutting everything out. The servant said. Xie Guanxuan did not leave. He stood there all night, withered and still, until Song Shitong went to find him. On the third day of my return to the capital, I happened to catch the flower festival. I went out, joining the ladies from my father's colleagues' families for a spring outing to admire the flowers. Song Shitang was there too. She didn't look happy, wearing ordinary jewelry. She sat alone on the side. No one spoke to her. Xie Guanxuan had made a grand show of bringing her back. Making sure many people knew about it, she was entangled with a married man. Her past was no secret. Most people didn't like her, often mocking and ridiculing her, saying she had driven me away. In such lively gatherings, she could only sit in the corner, suffering from neglect. I ignored her, lowering my head and quietly cutting the colorful paper in my hands. Mrs. Yi kept chattering in my ear. She went from being the wife of a county clerk to the wife of a ministry official. What more could she be dissatisfied with? I thought about it. Perhaps that's not what she wanted. I raised my hand and handed Lady Yi a small silver pair of scissors. She sat down and joined me in cutting colorful paper, then attached the colored paper to the flower branches as an offering to the flower deity, praying for all flowers to bloom in full. Lady Yi couldn't sit still. She only cut for a short while before going off to chase butterflies. Song Shitang walked over to my side. The voice was soft, but the resentment was heavy. Pei Jiaoyi, it's all your fault. I was a bit bewildered. Her blaming me again. Although I'm still young and my spine is in good shape, I can't carry this many blame pots. She said, if it weren't for you marrying Xie Guanxuan, I could have married him 5 years ago. I wouldn't have had to suffer all that. There wouldn't be anyone else in his heart. We wouldn't have ended up despising each other. I rubbed my temples. My head ached a little. Why don't you blame him then? She was taken aback. I said, even if he didn't marry me, he would have married someone else. When he became a 5th-rank official in the Ministry of Personnel, he was only 22. That's a position many people strive for half their lives and still can't reach. The top scholar who passed the imperial exams the same year as him is still beneath him now. If he had wanted to marry you, no one could have stopped him. It's just that he couldn't let go of all this. You should be glad he married me. I'm an easy pushover. If it were anyone else, they would have dealt with both you and Xie Guanxuan the moment you wrote him that first letter. Actually, when Xie Guanxuan helped her get the divorce, I was happy for her. Happy that she had escaped the sea of fire. Later on, I came to dislike her. She, just like I used to be, couldn't see things clearly. I said it slowly, dropping the scissors. I prepared to leave. Her eyes turned red. Standing alone outside the flower bed, tears streamed down uncontrollably. I had a wonderful time. At dusk, when I returned home, Mother told me that several families had sent matchmakers to propose marriage. I said, I don't want to marry again. I've already been through it once. Marriage isn't all that great, it just adds a lot of responsibilities. You have to manage the household, support your husband, and worry about having children. If you don't choose the right person, you'll suffer a lot. Alone, I felt more at ease and free. Mother respected my opinion and politely declined all the matchmakers. At home, I helped Mother with household chores and occasionally went out with friends. Life was very enjoyable. Xie Guanxuan often sends me things. Sometimes they are rare little trinkets, sometimes they are long, heartfelt letters. I sent all of these back untouched. On an ordinary night, Song Shitang came to see me. She had grown thinner and looked haggard. It was chilly outside, so I let her come in first. She cried and apologized to me. I was terribly wrong back then. It was my fault. I looked at her calmly and handed her a handkerchief to wipe her tears. She said, Xie Guanxuan only provided for her but often avoided seeing her. She was in the mansion, with no one to speak to, feeling depressed every day. Back then, it was Xie Guanxuan who broke his promise to marry her. Now, it is also Xie Guanxuan who neglects her. She sobbed, I hate him. I rested my chin on my hand and listened, unsure how to evaluate their tangled web of love and hatred. Just don't come to hate me, that's all. It seemed like Song Shitang hadn't confided in anyone for a long time. She just kept talking to me for a long while, as if speaking to herself. It made me drowsy. Finally, she asked me, can you forgive me? Back then, I was jealous and competed with you, took what was yours, and made you sad. I know I was wrong. I thought for a moment and said, all right then, when you've fixed my phoenix crown, I'll forgive you. Half a year later, Song Shitang returned my phoenix crown to me. The ruby that had been cracked before was replaced with one of even finer quality. The tiny rice pearls were glued on one by one with her own hands. All those scratches had vanished without a trace. Not bad. At least during the 6 months she spent repairing the phoenix crown, she wasn't bored and didn't spend every day wondering whether Xie Guanxuan loved her or not. During this time, 2 major events also took place. The first thing is that my father has been cleared of the false charges and reinstated to his official position. The second thing is that Xie Guanxuan was convicted due to political struggles and exiled to Lingnan. I wasn't surprised, from the moment he entered the officialdom. He rose steadily, too smoothly. He inevitably still harbors some naivety, lacking a bit of caution, making him prone to stumbling. Before setting off, he came to see me again. Just like at the very beginning, I stood on the high steps of the minister's residence, watching him. He stood at the foot of the steps, his posture restrained. He had to look up at me when he spoke. I'm going to Lingnan, and I might stay there for many years. Does this count as atonement? His voice was hoarse. I didn't want to hear it. I said, it doesn't. You brought this upon yourself through your own carelessness. It has nothing to do with me. I turned and walked away. Song Shitang was also going to Lingnan with Xie Guanxuan. She had no friends in the capital. Only I went to see her off. She sat in the simple carriage, lifting the curtain to look at me, the light in her eyes dim. I knew what she was worried about. Lingnan had always been rumored to be a place of miasmic rains and wild mists. Once we left, it was uncertain whether we would ever return. I said, don't worry, Lingnan is a good place. It's just a bit far, but you can spend more of Xie Guanxuan's money to get a bigger carriage and make yourself more comfortable. There are plenty of fruits in Lingnan, and they're delicious. Many of them aren't available in the capital. She curved the corners of her lips and smiled, gentle and radiant, just like the first time I saw her. Another tear fell from the corner of her eye. Thank you, Jowie. I was in the capital, studying and learning. I read many books of the sages and also learned acupuncture and woodblock New Year paintings. My father did not remain in the position of Minister of Personnel forever. He later requested an assignment outside the capital. He had seen all the splendor the world had to offer. I will no longer be troubled by those trivial matters. Xie Guanxuan also achieved some accomplishments in Lingnan. But there was no one in the court to speak up for him. He was later transferred to many places but never managed to return to the capital. The last time I saw him was when he came to see me before leaving the capital. Years later, I received a letter from Song Shitang. She had been married to Xie Guanxuan for 10 years before finally making up her mind to separate. She was different from me. She had no one to rely on but Xie Guanxuan. 3 years ago, she followed Xie Guanxuan to Chengdu for his reassignment. She had always been clever and quickly learned to weave shoe brocade. With a skill to make a living, she could leave Xie Guanxuan and support herself. I thought, this is very good. There are still many years left in life. We can all live for ourselves once again. Second story. 1 month before marrying Xiao Guanlin, I had chosen my burial ground, right next to my parents, with excellent feng shui. The feng shui master said that lying here would ensure no worries about food and clothing, and the whole family would live a prosperous life together. Just then, I ran into Xiao Guanlin holding Shen Fusu, coming to pay their respects. Shen Handing, it was you who caused their deaths. You have no right to pay your respects. Only Susu is worthy of being their daughter. Years of companionship have earned me nothing but his utter disgust. Before marrying me, he first took my adopted sister as his concubine. Not only did he marry her with the ceremonial honors befitting a crown princess, but he also revised the Shen family genealogy, making her my parents' only daughter. I glanced at my disheveled, flushed foster sister. I sighed softly. It's fine. It's fine. After all, I won't have to see her ever again. July 15th. I walked up the mountain carrying a basket of offerings. The feng shui master caught up with me, stroking his 2 small tufts of beard and speaking rapidly. Honored one, we've already looked at burial sites for 3 days. Were you still unsatisfied with the one we just saw, right next to the royal and noble tombs, nestled against the mountain and by the water with beautiful scenery? It's an excellent location. Seeing that I remained silent, he hastily added, moreover, this is wild mountain land, so it's cheap. Originally, it would have cost 4 taels of silver. But since you seem to be in urgent need, today this burial plot is only 3 taels. I stopped in my tracks and, without hesitation, took out the last 5 taels of silver from my pocket. I'll take it. 3 taels for the land, 1 tael is for your trouble, and the remaining 1 tael, please, after I die, use it to buy a simple coffin and hire some people to handle my burial, as the crown prince's intended consort. I know this seems rather shabby, but Xiao Guanlin treats me coldly, and the servants in the Eastern Palace are snobbish. They even withhold my stipend and steal valuable items from the palace to sell. These 5 taels of silver were only obtained by selling the jade bracelet I had before entering the palace. Able to buy a plot of land not far from my parents for just 3 taels of silver. It was truly a bargain. Back then, the political factions were in constant conflict. In the struggle to seize the position of the crown prince, the Prince of Armping, who supported the second prince, falsely accused Xiao Guanlin. This led to his dismissal and exile to Qianzhong. I secretly followed him and endured 3 years of hardship with him in Qianzhong. Later, my father secretly helped Xiao Guanlin overturn the unjust case and return to the Eastern Palace. Because of this, when Prince Anping rebelled, the Shun family was the first to be targeted and massacred in retaliation. In recognition of this kindness, His Majesty issued an edict allowing my parents to be buried on imperial land. I was taken into the palace and was to marry Xiao Guanlin after the mourning period of 1 year had passed. Father, mother, it's not that your daughter doesn't want to stay with you, I murmured as I burned paper offerings. The land you're resting on is very expensive. Xiao Guanlin treats me poorly and doesn't give me money. I can't afford to buy a plot here. Thinking of this, I sniffled. But I bought the one next door, so I can still see you. I haven't visited you much these years, I said, taking out delicate pastries from the basket, mainly because I didn't have the money to arrange to leave the palace. Please don't blame me. I'll be able to stay with you all from now on, Your Highness. Don't touch there, how annoying. The woman's coquettish complaint was accompanied by the man's low laughter, creating an intensely ambiguous atmosphere. I froze for a moment, then turned to look, meeting Xiao Guanlin's peach blossom eyes that were tinged with a hint of desire. The young man was clad in a black robe edged with gold thread, his hair tied high in a ponytail, with sharp brows and starry eyes, his handsome features as if sculpted. Shen Handing, what are you doing here? Xiao Guanling was taken aback for a moment, his long eyes slightly widening before reverting to his usual look of disdain. What trick are you playing now? Shun Fu nestled in his embrace, coquettishly saying, Your Highness, today is the 15th of July, my sister must have come to pay respects to our parents. After saying that, her gaze fell on the offerings I had brought, and she spoke with a hint of surprise. Sister, why did you bring such shabby things for our parents? 2 rolls of spring pancakes, 4 pieces of hibiscus cakes, half a crispy-skinned duck, a stack of dough wrappers, and a pot of fine pear blossom wine. All were the snacks our parents loved when they were alive. I didn't have enough silver on me. These were things I asked the feng shui master to bring for me from outside the palace. Shen Handing, it was you who caused their deaths. You have no right to pay your respects. Only Susu is worthy of being their daughter. Back then, the rebellious Prince of Anping carried out a midnight massacre. Originally, the Shun family had a secret underground passage for escape. Known only to the head of the family, but on that very day, for some unknown reason, the rebels all chased after and blocked the secret passage. The entire Shun family of 112 members was completely massacred. Only Shen Fusu, who had escaped earlier, and I, hidden inside a rice vat, survived. Afterward, I became involved in an illicit affair with the second prince, who was supported by Prince Anping. Rumors began to spread that I had mistakenly trusted the second prince and revealed the secret passage to him. That is why the entire Shen family met such a tragic end. Xiao Guanlin firmly believed this. I've explained many times, but he never believed me, seeing that I remained silent. He snorted coldly and waved his hand. Several eunuchs behind him stepped forward, presenting a row of offerings. How well our parents treated you when they were alive. Shun Fusu swayed her hips as she carried several plates of offerings forward, kicking all of mine to the ground. Is this what you offer them to eat? Shun Fusu was the adopted daughter taken in by my parents, but on the day when the Prince of Anping took his revenge, Shun Fusu, for some unknown reason, got wind of the news and fled alone beforehand. Xiao Guanlin, who came at the sound, was filled with worry and searched for me frantically among the piles of corpses. He searched all through the night, and finally sat dejectedly among the corpses, utterly lifeless, thinking that I had died. When he heard that someone had found me in the rice vat, he didn't hesitate for a moment, rushing in to hold me tightly in his arms. I'm late, Handing. Thank goodness you're all right. I can't imagine what I would do without you. That day, with the wind and rain raging, Xiao Guanlin held me tightly the whole way, afraid I might vanish the next second. I immediately knelt and begged His Majesty to grant the marriage, and after the 1-year mourning period ended, I was welcomed into the household. But Shen Fusu, who had been missing for a month, appeared at the palace gate seeking an audience. Sister, I have nowhere to go, could you take me in? Shen Fusu knelt pitifully on the ground, begging me, but her eyes kept drifting toward Xiao Guanlin. Since then, she kept bumping into Xiao Guanlin, especially staying by his side when there was a rift between him and me. Gradually, Xiao Guanlin completely forgot what he had said before. At my 17th birthday banquet, after my affair with the second prince was exposed, Xiao Guanlin began to favor Shen Fusu. He even went so far as to take her as a concubine with the status of a crown princess before marrying me. They believe I caused the death of the entire Shin family, removed me from the family register, and replaced my name with Shinfusu's. She became my parents' only daughter, and I became the sinner, forbidden to be buried beside my parents after death. Now, she no longer shows the humility and pitifulness she once had toward me, as the crown princess. You really shouldn't bring out such things in the future. Shinfusu stepped on the scattered tribute items on the floor and sneered, lest you embarrass His Highness. Those who don't know might think His Highness mistreats you. Xiao Guanlin caressed her slightly disheveled hair bun, his fingers gliding over the ambiguous marks on her neck. Fusu understands propriety best. Shenhanding, don't think that playing pitiful will soften my heart. This is no place for someone like you. I don't want to see you. I looked at Xiao Guanlin's slightly askew belt, then slowly turned my gaze to Shinfusu, whose clothes were disheveled and face flushed red. I let out a deep sigh. It's okay, I'll never see it again anyway. Actually, in the palace, Xiao Guanlin and Shinfusu often made love in front of me. The first time I saw the person I liked with my sister in bed, I also broke down and screamed. Before I turned 17, I firmly believed that Xiao Guanlin loved me. I will be his only wife. The rugged mountains and treacherous paths of Qianzhong, where we supported each other through many dangers. And the 3 years of hardship only deepened our bond. After he brought me into the palace, he knelt alone before the great hall for 3 days to plead for this marriage. But on my 17th birthday, everything changed. I was forced to drink a massive dose of aphrodisiac and delivered to the bed of the equally unconscious second prince. To protect my chastity, I struggled to escape, only to be beaten nearly to death by the guards at the door. Blows rained down like hail. But I clung desperately to the pillar, refusing to go back inside. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I heard Xiao Guanlin's voice and forced my blood-caked eyes open, seeing a familiar figure walking towards me. Aylin, help, save me. I reached out to him with all my strength, only to see him hesitate and take a step back. His face showed an expression of disbelief. Handing, you're really having an affair with Xiao Guanzhou. How could you be with him? I shook my head desperately, swallowing the blood in my mouth and mumbling incoherently. No, it's not like that. I was framed, Aylin, believe me. Xiao Guanlin's lips tightened into a straight line, his gaze fixed on me, filled with pain. The Prince of Anping's faction supported the second prince and nearly caused his death. They also destroyed the Shin family. I must not have any connection with him, no matter who I am. After a moment's hesitation, Xiao Guanlin still chose to pick me up. Nestled in his arms, I felt incredibly at ease, thinking I was saved, but then I heard the harsh, piercing gossip around me. This Shin is known for his integrity, yet his daughter is so promiscuous, she actually threw herself into someone else's bed. The Shin family was wiped out. Yet Shenhanding is utterly shameless, without a shred of dignity. Xiao Guanlin's arms around me gradually tightened. Protecting a woman like this isn't worth it, Your Highness the Crown Prince, indeed. With both witnesses and evidence present, she still refuses to admit it. Xiao Guanlin was about to scold her when Shinfusu fell to her knees, sobbing, "It's all my fault. My sister said she was going to meet the second prince in secret. I should have stopped her. It's my fault. My sister clearly no longer loves His Highness, yet I still urged her to consider the bigger picture and not defy the imperial decree. That's why she made such a grave mistake." An excessive dose of aphrodisiac left my mind in a haze, and I couldn't help but moan softly. "I'm so hot, really so hot." Xiao Guanlin's voice was extremely soft. "Shenhanding, do you admit your mistake?" I still gritted my teeth and insisted, "It's not my fault, I did nothing wrong, apologize, and I'll pretend this never happened." I had never seen such a terrifying expression, but I bit the tip of my tongue and said firmly, "I did nothing wrong." He stopped by the lake, surrounded by the clamor of whispers, and looked down at me with lowered eyes. It felt like heartache, like hesitation. Then he closed his eyes and threw me down. "If you're hot, go cool off in the water. Come up when you know you're wrong." The lake in the 12th lunar month was still covered with a thin layer of ice. The biting cold seeping into my bones, aching like and snoring, my cotton-padded clothes soaked up the water, and after flailing a couple of times, I slowly sank. The shore was shrouded in mist, and the figures gradually became indistinct. I don't know who saved me, but when I woke up, I was already back in my bedchamber. The first thing I did upon opening my eyes was to look for Xiao Guanlin, wanting to explain. The weather was so cold, yet in his bedchamber, I saw two bodies entwined together. The woman's soft moans and the man's low gasps filled my ears. Ah, Your Highness, it's my sister. Sister, it's not what you think. Shun Fusu let out a startled cry, her eyes reddening as she pulled the blanket to cover herself, yet it couldn't hide the glaring bruises all over her body. How could you all do this? My question was weak and feeble, as if I were the one in the wrong. Xiao Guanlin sat up, draped in his outer garment, his expression unchanged. You slept with my brother, so why can't I sleep with your sister? He actually had the nerve to say such shameless words. I walked back along the palace wall. Xiao Guanlin had changed, and so had I. My heart no longer ached as it once did, and that was a good thing. The young man who blocked the boulder for me in Qianzhong has long been dead. Shun Fusu once asked him, Your Highness, won't this hurt my sister's feelings and affect your relationship? Then I would be the sinner. But he said, she made a mistake and should atone for it herself. She has loved me for so many years, and in a few days she'll be fine on her own. She still has to marry me. Besides, as an orphan, where else could she go if she left here? Those who know each other best also know each other's sore spots the most. Someone patted me on the shoulder. Miss Shun, Xiao Guanzhou, his face pale, gave me a gentle smile. I saw you just now and called out for a long time without a response. Is something the matter? I shook my head. Nothing is the matter. Thank you for your concern. I used to think that the second prince, Xiao Guanzhou, was a wicked man, committing all sorts of evil under the support of the Prince of Anping. It wasn't until I entered the palace that I realized he, too, was a pitiable soul. The second prince's birth mother passed away early, and his maternal family had little influence. He was born with a chronic illness, and the imperial physicians predicted he would not live past the age of 20. As a result, ambitious nobles and generals all sought to use his status to seize power. He had no choice but to be a puppet, passed around and used as a pawn or a shield. I should resent the Prince of Anping, not the second prince. Last time with the drugging incident, although he was set up, he still felt deeply apologetic towards me. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the second prince left first due to some matters. Shen Handeng, you have quite the nerve. A sinister voice sounded from behind and to my left. I abruptly turned my head and met Xiao Guanlin's inscrutable eyes. I wonder how long he has been watching here. Only an hour, and you've already found the chance to meet someone in secret. I really underestimated you. He always speaks harshly, so I ignored him and continued walking on my own. He was somewhat embarrassed and angry, grabbing my shoulders. He sneered coldly. What? Caught in the lie and now too afraid to speak? I thought he was being unreasonable. I merely ran into the second prince on the road and exchanged a few pleasantries. It's your own mind that's filthy. My mind is filthy. Xiao Guanlin's eyes darkened with intense ferocity. Fine. I'll show you what true filth is. Someone, take her to the front of the bedchamber and tie her to the stone pillar in the courtyard. It was the height of summer. The heat so intense it felt like it could roast a person alive. Tied to the stone pillar, I drifted in and out of consciousness. Xiao Guanlin, holding Shun Fusu, looked at me and said, Shen Handeng, if you admit your mistake now, I can forgive you this once. I was so roasted that I couldn't even lift my head. I said, I didn't do anything. I'm not wrong, Your Highness. Perhaps my sister really just happened to meet the second prince on her way back, Shun Fusu said with pitiful eyes, pretending to plead for me, and then they exchanged a few words, which you happened to see. After causing such a serious incident last time, my sister probably wouldn't make the same mistake again. But since the wedding is coming up soon, a young lady should still avoid suspicion, don't you think, sister? Xiao Guanlin stared at me intently, and I forced myself to look up and smile at him. My relationship with the second prince is completely innocent. It's just that some people have twisted thoughts. As if deeply insulted, Xiao Guanlin publicly picked up Shun Fusu. Your Highness, there are so many people here. Please don't do this, I'm shy. The stone pillar was scorching hot, burning so much that it ached in the chest. They hadn't even closed the door properly. The man's muffled groans and the woman's moans slipped through the crack. After a while, it finally quieted down inside. Tell Shen Handeng to bring water. Where is Shen Handeng? An impatient voice came from inside. I was set down, and someone shouted loudly, Your Highness, Miss Shen has fainted. A chaotic sound of footsteps accompanied the crash of the door being kicked open. I was pulled into a broad chest, enveloped by the scent of wood. Shen Handeng, I'm telling you, stop pretending to be dead. How could you be this weak after just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn? Wake up now, Shen Handeng. Shen Handeng, where is the imperial physician? Where is the imperial physician? The man cried out anxiously. I felt as if I had returned to the torrential rain and floods of Qianzhong, unable to see or hear clearly. Xiao Guanlin pressed my hand tightly against his chest. Cold lamp, I want you to live, let's be together for a lifetime. During the sweltering season in Chenjiang, I sat under the locust tree while he picked flowers from the branches to make cakes, or perhaps when we went down to the stream to catch fish. He would spear one and excitedly hold it up for me to see, but then the scene shifted, my parents lay dead before my eyes, and the Shen family home was engulfed in raging flames. Xiao Guanlin held me in his arms, whispering words of comfort and swearing he would marry me, but at my 17th birthday banquet, I was falsely accused of losing my virtue and beaten nearly to death. Everyone suspected that I had betrayed my entire family to save myself, which was why I was the only one who survived. Thus, my affair with the second prince seemed all the more plausible. I was thrown into the icy lake water, and I don't know how long it was before someone fished me out. No imperial physician was willing to come to treat me. I burned with fever for several days before finally recovering. My health has been ruined ever since. The folk doctor said I wouldn't live past 3 years. I went to find Xiao Guanlin, hoping to speak with him and clear up the misunderstanding. Ease this relationship in the remainder of my life, but he never gives me a chance to speak alone. Every meeting is filled with hostility. He even grew increasingly distant from me. Later, Shen Fusu knelt before me, begging me to bless her love with Xiao Guanlin. She moved into my bedchamber, threw away my belongings, and smashed the gifts Xiao Guanlin had given me. She snatched my little dog and brutally killed it right before my eyes. Yet in the face of all this, Xiao Guanlin remained indifferent. No longer speaking a single word in my defense, I slapped Shen Fusu hard, but the next second I was immediately grabbed and dragged into the palace to be locked up, starving for 3 days in the pitch darkness, with the whimpers of a puppy filling my ears. I felt like I was going insane. He thought I had betrayed him and wronged his feelings. He wanted revenge on me and condoned every action that caused me pain. I suddenly opened my eyes, gasping for air. A crowd of people waited outside, with several imperial physicians bowing their heads and standing silently, not daring to speak. The atmosphere was unusually oppressive. Shen Handong, Xiao Guanlin's eyes were bloodshot, looking as if he had been up for a long time. He almost gritted his teeth as he asked, "What on earth is wrong with your body?" "What's wrong with my body?" I suddenly found it somewhat amusing. The man before me seemed like a complete stranger, utterly unfamiliar. I was beaten with a club until I had internal bleeding, then thrown into icy water by him. My vitality was severely damaged, and my health is no longer what it used to be. The doctor said I could live for 3 more years, but he is tormenting me relentlessly, and I doubt I'll even survive one. I turned my head away, not wanting to look at him. "I'm doing quite well." He gripped my hand, as if trying to crush my bones. "The imperial physician said your body is depleted, hollow inside and out. Said you won't live, said you're not well at all." Xiao Guanlin grew inexplicably agitated. "Are you pretending? Are you lying to me?" I found it amusing and retorted, "Why would I lie to you? What good would it do to lie to you?" Xiao Guanlin leaned in closer, his gaze intense as he stared at me. "We are to be married in 1 month. Stop playing these lowly tricks." I laughed and coughed at the same time. "Xiao Guanlin, it was the imperial physician you summoned who said I was beyond saving. And I haven't even scolded you for cursing me with a short life yet." He was choked with anger, paused for a long moment, then suddenly softened his tone. "Handong, stop throwing a tantrum. We are about to get married, so don't act willfully and make a scene anymore. I forgive the mistakes you made in the past. Promise me, don't have any further contact with Xiao Guanzhou." His attitude changed quickly, but his words were still as harsh. I turned around and asked him, "I have never done anything wrong. I did not betray the family to save my own life. Nor did I." "Sister, you're finally awake." Shen Fusu rushed over, sobbing and weeping. She knelt by my bedside, her cheeks wet with tears, utterly heartbroken. "When I saw you had fainted. Both His Highness and I were extremely worried," she said, firmly grasping my hand without waiting for a response. "Now you're finally awake. It was worth spending 3 days chanting sutras in the temple, finally praying for my sister's full recovery. Perhaps the baby in my belly is also praying, moving the heavens." She has been hypocritical since childhood, in front of her parents, and in front of Xiao Guanlin, but my parents believe me, while Xiao Guanlin does not. I sneered. "So she came here to show off her pregnancy." Remembering the disgusting things they did before I fainted, my stomach churned, and I couldn't help but vomit. "Get out, all of you." Xiao Guanlin was about to speak up for his beloved wife again. "Susu came to see you out of kindness. How could you treat her like this? She is still with child. Get out." As expected, Shen Fusu began to sob softly again. "Sister still blames me for my relationship with His Highness. I'll leave now." Xiao Guanlin watched Shen Fusu run out in tears, then turned to look at me. He still went after her. I lay by the bedside, feeling increasingly nauseous. My stepsister stole my fiancé. Such a story, only found in cheap novels, had to land on me. After that day, rumors began to spread in the palace that I might not live much longer. Life was already hard enough, and now no one was willing to care for me, leaving only an old maid to keep me company. Xiao Guanlin has gone somewhere unknown. I couldn't find him to ask for a few servants to attend to me. The day was clear and breezy, and I leaned against the door to bask in the sun. I noticed Xiao Guanlin standing far away with a gloomy expression, not saying a word. The nanny gossiped, "These past few days, as soon as the young lady comes out, His Highness leaves. When the young lady isn't here, His Highness waits around, though who knows what he's looking at." I chuckled inwardly. What could he be looking at? He's just nursing a hopeless affection. If he really cared, he should have sent someone to look after me, I said, taking a bite of the cold steamed bun in my hand. Instead, he leaves me here chewing on cold buns before he goes. Nanny, I'm truly unlucky. I gave my heart to a wolf that can't be tamed. Nanny, please close the door. I smiled at Xiao Guanlin and went inside, holding the steamed bun. Fortunately, he still had a shred of conscience, and the next day a crowd of people swarmed in. The food was still warm. I hadn't even taken 2 bites when someone came through the door. Xiao Guanzhou entered with a gift box in hand, smiling as he said, "I heard you've just recovered from a serious illness, so I brought a small gift to visit you." While lighting incense, I gestured for him to take a seat. "I've been waiting for you, Second Highness." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh." I took a letter out of the drawer. "I'm not in good health and don't have the strength to go before His Majesty. Could I trouble you to deliver this letter for me in a few days? Also, I wonder if it would be possible for you to do me a favor and explain things to Xiao Guanlin." Holding the letter, he nodded to me solemnly. "All right, I agree." Just after seeing him off, Shen Fusu arrived, perhaps because she was pregnant. Her complexion was even more radiant than usual. "Sister, are you feeling better now? Please don't blame me, sister." His Highness was worried that it might be inconvenient for me to go out while pregnant, so he wouldn't allow me to leave. That's why I was delayed. I smiled at her. "You're not welcome here." She caressed her belly as if admiring a treasure. "Yes, sister." "Oh, the baby is kicking my stomach. Would you like to listen?" Seeing that I remained silent, she sat down on her own, proudly flaunting the child in her womb. Seeing that I did not respond, Shen Fusu grew somewhat annoyed. Noticing that there was no one around, she began to mock me. "Sister, why aren't you speaking? Is it because His Highness favors me, and you're dissatisfied? Once you were the daughter of the Minister of Censorate, noble and esteemed, but now, aren't you even less than me, a lowly adopted daughter?" I stared at her steadily and sighed. "Shen Fusu, I have no need to compete with you. Things that can be lured away by despicable means were never worth having in the first place." Shen Fusu froze for a moment, then pointed at me and snapped, "Who are you insulting, Shen Handing? The Crown Prince only keeps you around because you saved his life. You fickle woman, you're utterly unworthy of the position of Crown Princess. If you know what's good for you, I suggest you get out of the Eastern Palace as soon as possible." "So you came all this way just to drive me away?" I also stood up and calmly retorted. "It was you who drugged my tea at my 17th birthday banquet and had me sent to the second prince's bed, wasn't it?" "It wasn't me." She froze for a moment, then immediately denied it. I continued to speak in a faint voice. "In that case, by status, I am the daughter of the imperial censor, while you are merely a common-born daughter. In terms of position, you are far beneath me. In terms of affection, aside from being childhood sweethearts, I accompanied Xiao Guanlin through 3 years of exile, supporting each other and sharing life and death bonds. You are nothing but an abandoned child from a brothel. What do you have to compare with me?" Shen Fusu trembled with anger. She hated it the most when people looked down on others based on their background. Sure enough, she let out a low laugh. "So what? Even if I did it, His Highness still believes in me, doesn't he? He's convinced that you climbed into the second prince's bed on your own. What use is your identity and your relationship with His Highness?" "Of course it's useful." Xiao Guanlin stood at the doorway, silhouetted against the light. No emotion could be discerned in his eyes. He still held a vibrant, dewy bouquet of mountain flowers in his arms. "Is this how you framed your elder sister?" He clenched the bouquet tightly, his gaze sharp and fierce as he glared at Shen Fusu. "You are truly this malicious." Shen Fusu looked at him timidly and weakly, tears welling up in her eyes. "Your Highness, what brings you here?" "Of course, I specifically asked the nanny to invite him over. This is the first time I've taken the initiative to seek him out in days." Coincidentally, Xiao Guanzhou approached him personally to explain the events of that day, which made Xiao Guanlin very pleased. Rushing over here, I just happened to catch this entertaining scene, Your Highness. You must have misheard, that's not how it was. How could I ever harm my sister? Shenfusu returned to her usual pitiful demeanor. I adore her too much to even think of it. I pointed at Xiao Guanlin and reminded her, he has been here for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. He heard everything we just said. Your Highness, Your Highness. Shenfusu immediately knelt down, tears rolling down her cheeks. I was out of my mind back then. It was the second prince who forced me to do it. Sister is fine, isn't she, Your Highness? Please forgive me as it was my first offense. She touched her lower abdomen. Your Highness, I am still carrying your child in my womb. Please, for the sake of the child, spare me. She kept referring to herself as your humble servant, weeping and pleading with such grace. Xiao Guanlin's heart indeed softened, leaning against the table and chairs. I coughed softly and whispered, since she has admitted her mistake, let it be. Xiao Guanlin walked towards me, filled with guilt, wanting to give me a hug. Handing, you've been wronged all this time. I thought she was your sister, so she would never lie to harm you. That's why I mistakenly trusted her. I'm sorry. I held back my disgust and stepped back, looking into his amber eyes. It's all right. Back in Qianzhong. You took the blow from the boulder for me and were unconscious for many days. I've always believed in your affection for me. The misunderstanding back then was because I didn't clear it up in time. Xiao Guanlin held me in his arms, filled with guilt, and sighed deeply into my neck. I misunderstood you, you know. That day when I saw you with Xiao Guanzhou, I was so mad and crazy inside. You were always talking with him, always smiling so gently. But after you returned from Qianzhong, you never smiled at me again. The faint smile at the corner of my lips is because, since returning to the palace, my entire family was destroyed for protecting you. You dote on Shenfusu, believing rumors, and tormenting me. You even show signs of favoring a concubine over your wife. I never wanted to marry you in the first place. How can I bring myself to smile at you? You disgusting thing. The reason he chooses to believe me now is because Xiao Guanzhou personally went to explain. He revealed that he had been poisoned by Prince Amping in his childhood, which caused him to lose his ability to father children. I owe them a huge favor and have given appropriate compensation in return. Xiao Guanlin secretly rejoiced. The one he loved had not betrayed him, nor had she lost her innocence. He handed me the flowers, his eyes crinkling with a smile. These are freshly picked mountain flowers, your favorite from before. I left the palace and crossed several mountains to pick them. Do you like it? I did not take it, but lowered my eyes to look at Shenfusu. The fragrance in the air grew even stronger. Shenfusu, kneeling on the ground, screamed, blood. Why is there so much blood? Xiao Guanlin also frowned. Handing, wait for me here. I'll see her home first. I stirred the incense in the burner. Watching Xiao Guanlin frantically carry the miscarrying Shenfusu out the door, this ample amount of musk not only caused her miscarriage but also damaged her foundation, rendering her infertile for life. For a cherished wife who values children more than her own life, this is more terrifying than anything. And Xiao Guanlin, he will never see me again. When I bid farewell to the nanny and stepped out, my body ached terribly. I have long known that my body is exhausted and my life is fading. Xiao Guanlin has been keeping me alive these days with ginseng and lingji, but the blood I cough up in the dead of night is always dark. The pain keeps me from sleeping well. I often see my parents smiling at me, yet I can never reach them. Yesterday, when dealing with Shenfusu and Xiao Guanlin, I already knew I wasn't doing well. Today it's even worse. I can't even see the person in front of me clearly while standing. I'm afraid it's my final day. I forced myself to stand after drinking a bowl of ginseng soup and taking several heart-nourishing pills. With great difficulty, I made it to the neighboring mountain, where the feng shui master I had previously arranged to meet was leading a group of people, busy with their work. Sir, coming to supervise so early, what do you think of this coffin? I nodded, quite satisfied. It's quite good. Sat down next to the tree beside. Today is the grand wedding ceremony. I heard that Xiao Guanlin had long confined Shenfusu, who had a miscarriage and went mad. He was joyfully preparing to marry me. I wonder what he will think when he finds out I'm gone. Handing. I've finally married you. Xiao Guanlin nervously clenched his sweaty palms. He had waited so many years, and finally, this moment had arrived. Even with misunderstandings in between, their bond remained as strong as gold. Han Deng still chose to forgive him and waited with him for this day of marriage. He vowed that from now on, he would treat Han Deng well and never let her down again. He would make up for all the mistakes of the past in the days to come. Amid the fluttering red silk, The wedding attendant called 3 times for the bride to step out of the sedan chair, but there was no response. Xiao Guanlin sensed something was wrong and lifted the curtain. The sedan was empty. Where is Shen Handing? The musicians who were playing stopped, and the ministers who were applauding froze in place. Even the emperor and empress seated on the high platform were stunned. The crown prince was getting married, but the crown princess had vanished. Crown prince, where is Shen Handing? I slowly caught my breath and closed my eyes. I remembered specifically inviting Xiao Guanzhou this morning. I knew I was nearing my end, so I took the last moments to negotiate terms with Xiao Guanzhou. I want to leave the palace and make Xiao Guanlin and Shen Fusu pay the price they deserve. He wants to stop being a puppet. They hit it off immediately. Xiao Guanlin truly underestimated my father's importance in His Majesty's heart and overestimated his own standing with the emperor. Once, Xiao Guanzhou sighed and said, "The crown prince has always been so naive. If he were truly valued, he would never have been exiled back then. If the emperor truly doted on his son, there were countless ways to keep him close, rather than exiling him to a perilous and impoverished backwater. Xiao Guanlin was not that important to the emperor. The emperor only cared about his own imperial power. My father has served His Majesty for many years, with loyalty that is evident to all, and is a well-known loyal minister in the court, enjoying considerable prestige. Losing the bride on the wedding day is not a glorious matter. His Majesty only needs to make a brief inquiry to know how I have been treated since entering the palace, penniless, constantly suffering from hunger and cold, and being mistreated by the servants, enduring endless mockery, cold stares, and harsh treatment. Xiao Guanlin even went so far as to favor his concubine over his wife. Indulging in debauchery in broad daylight, it turns out the crown prince treated the orphaned daughter of a loyal minister who died for the country this way. This is an insult to the loyal minister. Once this matter came to light, not only the emperor but also the court officials were filled with righteous indignation, discussing it incessantly, with memorials impeaching Xiao Guanlin flying in like snowflakes. For a time, the imperial court was in great turmoil, and the position of the crown prince was hanging by a thread. Even more fatal was a letter submitted by the second prince, Xiao Guanzhou. Inside was my blood-written letter. Shen Fusu betrayed her master to save her own life, selling the underground passage routes of the Shen family to the Prince of Anping. That is why she was the first to learn the news and escape, while the entire Shen family, who clearly had an underground hiding place, were all wiped out. She entered the prison to secretly meet with the Prince of Anping, and secretly plotted to frame me and the second prince, ruining my reputation. Xiao Guanlin doted on her, allowing her to bully and humiliate me for over a year. The emperor was furious and ordered Shen Fusu to be captured and imprisoned for life. Xiao Guanlin was also exiled to Qianzhong for his involvement in the rebellion conspiracy. The second prince took over the Eastern Palace. On the way to exile, they encountered a stormy weather. The officers whipped the exiled convicts with lashes, shouting, "Move faster." Xiao Guanlin walked with disheveled hair, his mind in a daze. The exposed skin was festering and oozing pus, emitting a foul stench. He remembered the time when he was exiled to Qianzhong, and Shen Handing spent all his money to bribe the officials. That was why he made it safely all the way, accompanying him step by step. Stumbling along, they reached Qianzhong, causing him to be deposed and exiled to Qianzhong. "Though it is a humble abode," she said, "with our hearts united, it becomes a palace of gold and jade." A delicate young lady of noble birth, who hadn't had new clothes for 3 years, her slender and tender hands had developed calluses. Never once did she complain to him. Not long after returning to the capital and before they could enjoy a few peaceful days, the Shen family was annihilated. She witnessed the tragic death of her entire family with her own eyes. What did he say when he held her in his arms? "I will only be good to you for the rest of my life. If I break this vow, may I lose everything and die covered in festering sores." At that time, Shen Handing was deeply distressed himself, yet he still covered his mouth. "Ah Lin, you must be well. You are my only family left in this world." But after taking her into the palace, Shen Fusu firmly insisted that she had betrayed the Shen family. But Xiao Guanlin did not believe it. Once again stumbling upon her secret meeting with Xiao Guanzhou, rage surged through him. Drunk beyond reason, he actually threw her into the lake. When he fished her out and saw her pale face and tightly closed eyes in his arms, his heart ached unbearably, knowing he couldn't lose her. His mind was filled with turmoil, confusion, and helplessness, and he didn't dare to look at her. For a moment, I lost my soul, and when I woke up, I was already lying beside Shen Fusu. Shen Handing was heartbroken, and after that, she seemed to have no more emotions left, so he stayed with Shen Fusu. deliberately provoking her every time. How utterly wicked. Hurry up, the one behind. A whip lashed out fiercely. Xiao Guanlin fell to the ground with a thud, his cheek buried in the muddy soil. He opened his eyes and murmured, "Handing, I'm sorry." The passing official kicked him a few times. Another one dead from illness. What bad luck. The muddy ground was covered with water, concealing a body as thin as dried wood.